Hello there, Lake County Library. This is Christy Lewis from the Lakeport branch, and today I have a book haul for you, and we have a whole bunch of different kinds of books. We have 2 fantasy books, a thriller book, a literary fiction book, and a translated book from Italian. So cool, right? So, before we jump into it, I just want to let you know that you can order any of these books for free down below. You can get them in various forms like ebooks or audiobooks or book on CD, a large type. It's really cool. Definitely check it out. And check out our website. We have so much cool stuff on there. Like, just so much cool stuff. Without further ado, let's jump into the book haul. First of all, we have Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. Now, I am not somebody who reads a lot of new releases, just my personal taste. However, Brandon Sanderson is an exception. I really love Brandon Sanderson's fantasy. It's so engaging, it's very character driven, it's often extremely long, although this happens to be a novella. One of his qualities is as well very clear, like window pane prose that you can just see right through to the story. I think Brandon Sanderson's prose is a very specific stylistic choice that makes him very smart. I think he's just really an excellent fantasy writer. This is a novella that actually takes place between books 3 and 4 of his Stormlight Archives series, but I don't think like the nice thing about Brandon Sanderson's novellas is that he's usually talking about a character that he's only vaguely introduced in the main series, and it stands alone as a plot, even though it also fits into this more integrated picture of a million kingdoms in his Stormlight Archives series. It's just such a big world that there's lots of stories that can be going on, and you can just enjoy one of the stories if you want. So even his novellas are pretty long though, so it's kind of like you're reading a real novel. Just FYI. But this one, all I needed to read was Ghost Ship in the summary and I was sold. What this is about is there is an island, and one of the leading ladies of Roshar, which is the main fantasy kingdom in this series that we're following, she has realized that one of her ships that was supposed to go there and like find out more about the island, we don't really know what their quest was just from the summary of the novella, but they were going there, and then their ship was found later with absolutely nobody alive on the ship. It's called a ghost ship when there's nothing living on the ship and it's just found floating in the sea. So she has sent another ship out with a young woman who has magical powers to go look at the island and find out why her crew is just gone. Like, has the enemy overtaken this island? But the tricky thing about getting to this island is it's always shrouded in storms. So it's quite an adventure, it sounds like, for just a little novella. Dawnshard was published by Tor Books in 2022, the hardcover edition, and it is also available on ebook. Next, let's actually talk about The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. The Way of Kings is an epic high fantasy series that has a very difficult plot to explain because it's basically a setup book. It's really worth it. It's so worth it. So we're basically following a pretty large cast of characters, but there's 3 in particular that are mentioned in the beginning that you can follow, and I really latched onto one of them, and his name was Kaladin Stormblessed. And Kaladin is a soldier, and he has gone from being, you know, a surgeon with like a good family position to a slave who has the mark of a murderer on his head. And you don't really know his past when you meet him, but he has quite a traumatic past, and he actually also suffers from depression. He has like the best kind of heart, but he has a really huge chip on his shoulder against the Light Eyes, who are the ruling elites of his world. And he's just like, these people are all bad. He cannot see any good in them. However, he ends up meeting eventually a guy named Dalinar Kholin, who is very important. He is a Light Eyes who recognizes that he is very privileged in this society, and he's pretty much running a war that's supposed to be a war of revenge for the murder of his brother. So basically you're getting to know these characters and you're starting to wonder, like, what is this war all about? It's kind of confusing. Is this just a war for money, or is this actually a war for revenge? And the 3rd character that we're really following gets into that. Now, Shallan is her name. She is from an entirely different kingdom. It's totally broke, war-torn, and she's actually trying to steal a magical artifact that's also kind of technology. It's a twist on fantasy and sci-fi. And she needs to steal this magical artifact from Dalinar Kholin's niece in order to save her own family from wreck and ruin. So she goes in disguise as a scholar who just really, you know, wants to be trained as a scholar by Dalinar Kholin's niece. And really though, her goal is to make away with the magical artifact. These characters are very interesting. As I said, it's very character driven. You're just meeting the characters in the beginning. It's a setup type book, but it's worth it. It all comes together in the end. Highly recommend. The Way of Kings is also available on ebook, audiobook, and book on CD. It was published by Tor in 2010. Next, we have a thriller called Godspeed by Nickolas Butler. So this thriller was longlisted for the Reading the West Book Award, and it was written by the best-selling and award-winning author of Shotgun Love Songs. This is about 3 troubled construction workers. They have their own business, and they end up getting this job with an absolutely impossible deadline, but a huge bonus if they succeed. So they decide to drop everything and try to make it work. So this book is kind of examining like the cost of greed, because they are putting themselves, their lives, their families, everything on the line to make sure that this project works. It's like building a beautiful house in Wyoming is the project. The motives of the person who gave them this project are kind of mysterious. Like, how did he get rich enough to have this beautiful house? Sounds pretty interesting. If it sounds good to you, you can check it out for free down below. Godspeed is also available on ebook and audiobook, and it was published by G.P. Putnam's Sons in 2021. Next, we have Chouette by Claire Oshetsky. Now this is it sounds kind of experimental. It's literary fiction. It was longlisted for the 2022 PEN/Faulkner Award for Fiction, and it's called An Exhilarating and Provocative Novel of Motherhood in Extremis. So this seems like a difficult novel to explain with like a hint of surrealism. So it's about Tiny, who is pregnant, and she senses that her baby is not what her husband expects. She is right. She names her baby Chouette, which means owl, which might give you a clue. When Chouette is born, Tiny works around the clock to meet the needs of her daughter, but her husband is off on a dangerous and obsessive quest, trying to find a cure for the baby, who seems more predatory bird than baby. But Tiny is determined to raise her daughter to be her most authentic self. So arresting, darkly funny, unsettling, a Dantean journey through the violent fever dreams of a woman in the trials of pregnancy and early motherhood. No reader who has cared for a tiny human being will fail to recognize the battleground this talented author has conjured. That's Publishers Weekly saying that. Sounds very interesting. And I believe that there is some social commentary in this book. If Chouette sounds good to you, you could check it out down below. It is available as well on ebook, audiobook, playaway, and book on CD. And I don't have the date or publisher listed here, sorry about that, but it was very recent. And finally, we have our book translated from Italian. It's called Hummingbird by Sandro Veronesi. So this book is apparently like the #1 international sensation from a master of European literature. So Veronesi is apparently the winner of Italy's Premio Strega, which is a saga of the Florentine family from the 1960s to the present that brilliantly captures the power of history. And we know that Italy has quite some history. And this book is really aiming to paint the portrait of existence of its main character, who is Marco Carrera. He is the hummingbird, the title of this book, because no matter what's going on around him, whatever chaos and suffering that he's going through, he just seems to endure it very well without being like thrown by it. But even though he has this facade of stoicism, he actually lives very intensely. It seems like he really loves life and has a joy for living. So he's a man who embodies the quiet heroism that defines daily life for countless ordinary folk. It's sometimes nice to read about like an ordinary person going through their daily stuff, because that's what a lot of us experience, you know? So it's told in a myriad of narrative styles. I don't know what that means, but it's probably literary. And it has praise and blurbs from authors like Jhumpa Lahiri and Ian McKeon, as well as Vanity Fair and The Guardian. And it was translated from the Italian by Elena Pella. If the Hummingbird sounds good to you, you can get it down below. It's also available on ebook and audiobook, and it was published by Harper Via in 2022. That is it, guys. Thank you so much for watching this. Let us know down below what you think if you're ordering any of these books, or if you have any questions. We really love to hear from you. Make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified anytime we make new videos. And I'll talk to you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.